The time period that we are currently in is referred to in the Jewish calendar as the 9 days. This is a period of time that begins from the first of the month of Av until the 9th of Av, Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av. And it's classically a very sad time in Jewish history. We focus on the calamities that befell our people, fundamentally the destruction of the temples which took place on the 9th of Av, as well as throughout our history a whole series of tragic events. One of the great challenges of modernity is to be able to come to terms with this loss, with this destruction, and actually make it real in our own lives. How do we in 2020 be able to touch on and appreciate what it means to have lost sovereignty from our land when we are once again living in a renewed modern state of Israel? What does it mean to live in exile? What does it mean to go without? Now, as I'm speaking, of course, one cannot help but think of the coronavirus, the global pandemic, the sense of quarantine that we have been in, and indeed the tragic loss of life that we have experienced. And this has actually touched very close to home with so many in our own community having tragically passed away through coronavirus directly or coronavirus related illnesses. And yet one is stuck with this sense of, is the Jewish calendar a part of our lives? Are we able to really be touched by it? I think one way into this is by looking at the words of the Megillah that is traditionally associated with Tisha B'Av, Megillat Eicha, where history and tradition ascribes it to the prophet Jeremiah. He opens with the words, alas, or woe, or how could this be? It's almost as if it's a primordial groan of, oh, like, how could this be? Look at what we have lost. Look at what we no longer have. And I think that is actually the key to the entire period of this time. Sometimes we lose things which we always took for granted. And it's only after the fact that we realize, wow, I never even paid attention to the blessings and the appreciation of what I had in my life in the first place. And now look at what it is that I have lost. Eicha yashva badav, woe, and how is it possible that this incredible city, that this incredible people now sits alone in solitude, having lost everything? One way perhaps into appreciating the difficulty and the hardship of this time of year is to actually look at what we're blessed with and to think for a moment, what do we take for granted? What are the things in our lives which all too quickly and all too often we don't even realize how fortunate we are because the blessings are right under our nose? And then to imagine, if for a morbid second, what would life look like without those blessings? Indeed, a scary thought. And yet it can help us appreciate what it is that we are blessed with. And maybe that's one way into not only appreciating our blessings, but a way into Tisha B'Av and the calendar as well. And as a tie-in to the parasha, if you look carefully as we begin this new Sefer of Devarim, you will notice actually that that same word, Eicha, is said also by Moshe when he speaks about the sense of how it was that the spies were coming forwards, pushing in a rabble, in a crowd, in an angry mob. And Moshe turns to God and says, how could I possibly carry this people alone? Look at all of the burdens, look at the difficulty, look at the challenge. How is it possible that I can do all of this? I'm just one person. This is one way, perhaps, into this challenging time, and hopefully it's something that can give you much meaning. Shabbat Shalom.